Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the December review Shindig. Today it's me, we have Cristiano, we have Ben, and we have Afsal. So we'll start the introductions. First one is going to be me, of course. I actually work at Maintain with Web Dev Studios. I have been reviewing WordPress themes for the last, what feels like 5 years now? I want to say 4, but it's going to be 5 pretty soon, so... Next up, we got Cristiano. Cristiano, tell us about yourself.
Hi everybody. I'm Cristiano Zanca. I'm a team reviewer and a WordPress freelance. Also work with WooCommerce and all WordPress environment. And we are making this Shindig to promote the best practice of team reviewing to all over the world.
Awesome. Thank you, Cristiano. Up next, we got Ben.
Hey, my name is Ben. I'm actually also a theme author and a theme reviewer for WordPress. Also, doing this, I actually not doing this for work, but I'm doing this as a hobby, just to learn all the stuff that I need to learn about theme reviews and stuff like that. Thanks.
That's awesome. And last, we got Afsal. Tell us about yourself.
Hello, my name's Afsal. I've been developing themes for probably just over 3 years now, and distribute my own themes as well, so a theme author. So that's why I'm particularly keen in these Shindigs, making sure themes are developed properly. And yeah, just similar to Cristiano, making sure that we can share the knowledge on distribute my own correct, also a theme author. So that's why I'm particularly keen in these Shindigs, making sure themes are developed properly. And yeah, just similar.
Awesome. All right, so first up, let's go over to the presentation, of course. So we got enqueuing scripts and styles, and that's actually what we're going to go over today. It's literally enqueuing scripts and styles within WordPress, and making sure that we don't conflict with plugins or any other random plugins or even a child theme, because it does happen from time to time. You know, we're human, we make mistakes. I know I've made plenty. Just ask my wife. And so, from here, we're going to talk about specific files we want to enqueue. And of course, we're going to talk about things like app.js, like actual JavaScript files. Sometimes we'll have like a router.js. And of course, we have our basic style.css, or even sometimes we'll have the media formats.css. Now, WordPress actually is kind of cool in that it has a lot of functions available to us right off the bat, and one of them is, of course, WP enqueue script. The other one is WP enqueue style, and each one, of course, respectively enqueues which file they're talking about. Did you guys have anything to add on that one? Any other functions you guys can think of that could actually help out?
Well, I was just going to say here in the past, Cristiano has mentioned, when people first come to WordPress, they know PHP, they know how to develop, but it's really important to understand that adding scripts in WordPress is different to how you would necessarily do it in a custom build site. And if you're ever adding any script or style, you should be following this sort of method. But we don't allow enqueuing now directly in template files or anything like that. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with these two anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important to understand that WordPress is a complete environment. So you have to follow what are the way to include also a simple style sheet, because if you use require or PHP command, at the first update, it breaks everything. So everybody must be careful and read all the WordPress instruction, because it's not PHP language, but it's a complete environment. It allows you to avoid mistakes and for security reasons, to use this hooks and this function to better formatting, and not also better formatting, to make them working and upgradable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Important thing.
Very true. And I know Core actually provides a couple little other ones that they can be beneficial for some. Obviously, one of them is locate template, which is one of the few things that you can do, and that actually kind of helps out in child themes. But ideally, you do want to stick to enqueue script and enqueue style. So that's...
Yeah, I mean, using any other method is definitely when you're more advanced. So if you were to use that, there's got to be a reason why you're not using the onQueue method.
Very true. Very true. Now, we'll look at enqueue script first. Obviously, one of the first things that we want to emphasize, especially in the theme review team, is prefixing everything. You know, the first thing you want to do is pass the handle, or the theme name, or the script name, or even the style name. In this example, we have, of course, the theme name, and then we have the path, we have the dependencies, essentially what the script actually relies on. It's kind of like when you have a car, you know, the dependencies on that are what? The tires, gas, steering wheel, dashboard, you know, windshield. Those can be considered dependencies. It's what's needed to run the car. And then version, of course, that's actually kind of a cool one in that you can actually version, especially if you're on a server that caches very heavily. I've run into a couple of those in the last couple weeks where we've had to actually bump the version just because of that. And then, of course, in footer is a Boolean. So it's going to be true or false. Essentially, if you're going to load the script at the footer of the document or at the head of the document. And then style is very much like script. We pass it a handle or a name, the path to the file, any dependencies, any versions, or if we have a version. And then the last one's actually kind of an interesting one in that it actually accepts media queries. I know I didn't know this right off the bat when I first actually started working with WordPress or WordPress themes. And I know we went over this in the last couple days too. You guys didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I had no idea that you could onQueue a script that would target a specific screen size.
Yeah, it's something very specific, and more important now that mobile first is an hype in web developing. So I think that a lot of function that you can use knowing well all the WordPress things, avoiding you to install too many plugins to fit your needs. So it's very, very important to read well all the instruction, all the codecs, and to be updated with that, because every version in WordPress introduces some little things like starting content. That is very important. Maybe we will talk next Shindig.
Yeah.
And also media, the media part in enqueuing style is one of the most important little things in enqueuing, I think.
Exactly. I mean, definitely for the style one, and the other thing, like on the slide previous with the script, the fact that you can just set your boolean to true and it will load in the footer, I think, or vice versa, true or false. I'll have to record. But either way, you can use these functions to help things like page load speed. So you're loading where you want the script to be loaded on the page, and with target media queries, you need to have a massive style sheet loading on every single page.
Yeah, and one of the other things too is obviously what some people forget and some people actually don't fully know is WordPress comes with a bunch of scripts already on there, and some of them are already registered for you. So all you have to do is actually say, hey, enqueue this for me, or even add it as a dependency. One of the common ones obviously is jQuery. It actually comes bundled with jQuery. It also comes with underscores. It comes with backbone. And if you actually look at the core files of the... I'm trying to remember what the file is. It's like functions or script styles or script loader, I think. But it actually has an entire list of all those scripts that are available, and even some styles.
Mm-hmm.
I know in the Google Doc, there's a link in there too to that actual file or to the actual list of things that are enqueued.
Mm-hmm.
There
are even some advanced scripts like masonry. I think you can put a dependency on images loaded or something. So it does have lots of scripts which, you know, a lot of authors are still adding by bundling to the theme, and that doesn't need to be done.
Yeah, I actually forgot about that one. It does have masonry, and it actually has images loaded too.
Yeah, that's an important one, I think.
And one that's obviously forgotten a lot too is it comes with thickbox.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we always forget that. Always forget that, and I still do to this day. It's always fun.
There are hundreds of file libraries available, and it's funny because also I make this mistake. Sometimes I add some bootstrap or something, and we can use many libraries. So it's very important to read this list. Is available in the codex, and the links maybe we make available in the slide. And before inserting anything about a library or framework, check this, because performance is important.
Yeah, I mean, even in addition to performance as well, there are so many benefits of enqueuing from core. If it's in core, for example, core will take care of making sure it's the most up-to-date version, and it just helps improve your site security. And in terms of theme development, you don't need to download the latest version every time it's released, and making sure it's in your theme. Core does all of that for you.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. All right. So what's kind of nice too is this is an interesting one in that I've mentioned this a lot of times too, and I try to, I guess, pass on this knowledge. WordPress has a lot of hooks. It's got a lot of filters, and not only plugins taking advantage of this, themes can actually take advantage of those. You know, one of the cool ones, obviously, the basic hook for themes should always be WP enqueue scripts. You know, that's the one that you should be hooking to, and that's because that's what fires on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
And what's kind of nice is you can actually wrap conditionals inside of that. So if it's like in a specific format, you know, you can enqueue a specific file for that. All you'd have to do is ask or do the conditional, if has format this, load this. You know, or if it's a single, do this. Or if it's the front page, if it's the home blog.
Yeah.
Or if a specific page in general, you know, things like that. You would do that inside of that callback. And I know I've seen one or two where they pass it on to a different, and I can't remember which one, but I don't know if you guys have come across that yet.
No.
Not yet?
Nope.
Okay,
Not
that's
yet.
good. It's good. Means people are actually doing it right.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. I've seen cases where people get around enqueue scripts by either adding directly to template files or hooking to WordPress header or hooking to WordPress footer. But you know, there's no need to ever hook directly to those if you're enqueuing a script itself. Like you say, just use conditionals in the function for the callback to enqueue scripts.
Yep, very true. And then the two that you could possibly use are also WP head, and we also have WP footer. Now, these are kind of very rare, and ideally you should try to avoid using them. And there's obviously a reason for them, and it's because it's kind of an edge case to an extent. You guys have input on that one? Ben, have you ever used either one of those?
No, but I was going to ask was when do you actually use those two then?
When should you use them?
Yeah.
A lot of the time I've actually seen both of them used for JavaScript files, or not just JavaScript files, but a small JavaScript script, essentially.
Yeah.
I
I've seen
mean, I
those
know I've
too.
seen the WP head used for inline styles too. Like,
Okay, yeah.
I've seen a lot of themes as of lately, especially for like custom CSS.
Exactly where I've seen it used for WordPress header and WordPress footer. So that it's very, very common.
Yeah. And then ideally, when you actually hook, you do add action, and then we'll have our callback. And depending on how you actually want to do this, you can obviously pass one more parameter to add action, and that's of course the priority of that action itself. You can do a negative number, you can do a positive number, entirely up to you. But ideally, it would always follow that format of enqueue script, your callback function, then you create the function. And then inside of that, you call enqueue script. And the example, obviously, we have SD for Shindig, front functions, and then we find the template directory. And what's cool is I know in 4.7 they're actually going to be having new little functions that make it easier to actually override these rather than using like, a style sheet directory. It's, I think, get parent file or get theme file. I'm not fully sure, but it's going to be kind of a neat one.
So that will make it easier to get the relative path to files.
Yeah, so what's kind of cool is, so obviously as theme authors and theme developers and theme reviewers, we encourage people to use better standards or better methods, right? And one of the best practices when it comes to theming is always create a child theme, right? Because what if the parent gets a big update? You lose those changes, you lose those modifications, right? Well, one of the functions in get template directory, it will get the parent theme, regardless of which one is active. If you use get child or get style sheet directory, it will use the active theme. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of the things can break, especially if you're using it wrong. Because what that means is you're expecting the person to override that.
Yeah.
So that's why you don't want to be using it inside of a parent theme unless you really want that person to override it.
Yeah.
And in that case, you want to make sure it's documented, because otherwise you're going to get a bunch of support tickets saying, hey, why is this broken?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know I've seen one or two do this, I think, in the last 2 years.
Yeah, if it's not well included the CSS in the parent theme, is a problem also in a child theme to import the original the father CSS. So it's better to check also if the original theme from which you create and a child theme works in the best way it can.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really see much of a reason why somebody would want to use get style sheet directory, because first of all, it makes it less child theme compatible, because the person who makes a child theme probably only copies over like header, footer, makes a few changes to that. Whereas the advanced developer who does want to potentially enqueue their own style sheet, they can just deregister the script or style sheet and then re-register their own version. So yeah, I don't really see a reason for why you'd want to enqueue anything with get style sheet.
Yeah, it's better to modify only the thing you have to modify, not remove completely the further style sheet and add only what you need. And doing this conditional and this editing, you can do it without making a complete deregistration and the registration.
Very true. Very true. And then, of course, style, same exact way. We hook it up to WP enqueue scripts. We create our callback function, and then inside of that function, we use enqueue style. We pass it our style sheet name, or what we want to call it. And we've said this too earlier. You want to prefix it. You know, there's certain times when you don't want to prefix it, and I know on the Make Themes blog, I want to say it's on there. I can't remember off the top of my head. If you guys can provide that link, awesome. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But there are some that you don't want to prefix, and a lot of it is because it's like loading two of the same thing. An example of that, of course, is Bootstrap. You know, everyone loves using Bootstrap. So you'll have a theme that uses Bootstrap. You'll have a plugin that uses Bootstrap. Well, what happens if you have 3 plugins that use Bootstrap? Each one's going to probably load their own. So now you have 3 versions of Bootstrap. So what do you do then? You know, it's interesting because I think I talked to Afsal about this a couple months back, in that Bootstrap comes with Normalize. And it's interesting because what ends up happening is Bootstrap loads Normalize, and then what some themes will actually do is include Normalize. So now you have Normalize twice.
Yeah.
And I know not a lot of people actually saw that or look into it. So obviously,
well, that makes sense.
It's what?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So you're almost double normalizing, and it makes it even harder to override, especially in a child theme, because you're like, well, this style is coming from this, but then it's coming from this again.
Yeah.
I had that issue at one point. I can't remember what theme it was, but I was just like, it's driving me crazy because I can't override one simple thing.
And that's also the problem about themes that require plugins also, because it's a problem because it happens this situation, maybe it could happen, and you lose the control in the chain because the theme requires a plugin that maybe in the future will include the same library, and so we're double loaded, and performance go away.
I mean, it's definitely an issue as those libraries become more popular and they just get more widely used by plugins and themes. You have multiple versions, the exact same file being loaded. There's going to be a conflict somewhere. So
important. Prefix everything well.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to chime in here. On our live chat, I see that Surendra is asking if we're going to review a theme. And obviously, I brought this up earlier, and I brought this up last week too. What I want to try to do is sometime before the end of the year, actually have not only me, but you guys, and obviously whoever wants to review a theme live. You know, we'll all review the same thing. I'll share a Google Doc. We'll put anything and everything that is wrong, or at least we feel is wrong, in that theme, and go over it. You know,
nice.
I'm happy to do that. If a theme author is willing to actually go ahead and say, hey, can you review my theme? Wants to be the guinea pig.
They will get a very in-depth review because you have so many eyes looking at it.
Yep.
So whoever's courageous enough.
Yeah, a live multiple collective review, very, very unique. It's a very important event also in every aspects of the web developing. I think that our community let us do things that are enough difficult to organize in other CMS.
Yeah. I think everyone's receptive to the feedback. People want to get better themes out there, so that's why it works here.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
All right. So, next slide. We go ahead, and we were mentioning this earlier. Obviously, one of the use cases for using WP head and WP footer. Obviously, an example of this is actually within the core themes, where they actually hook to the head, and what they do is actually enqueue a small script, and emphasis, and I mean emphasis on small script. We're not talking an entire 30,000 lines of code, you know, because that itself would just be split it up into 4 different files and then load it that way. We're talking snippet of code. And same thing if you're doing the footer. And I know I've seen a couple themes actually hook or create their own hooks, which is good. It's awesome. And they'll do something like slider this and then pass an object to it of options and this and that. And then they'll use PHP inside of that. It's super simple. It's literally for, like I said, snippets of code, not full in-depth files. And I think it's 2016 that does something similar to this, but it works, and a lot of it is because it's an inline style. Now, this is where we actually have the most fun, because these functions are really cool. At least I think they're really cool, and they're really useful too. One of them is add inline style, and that's super simple. Like I said, it's very much like adding to the WP head. All you have to do is call it, use that, and you don't even have to worry about adding the style tags.
Yeah.
And same for like inline script. Go ahead, Cristiano.
Very useful also for little editing. If you have to modify only an aspect, it's very important, because sometimes if you don't know that way, you load a complete new CSS file and a lot of memory then you can avoid to load. And it's very, very useful. This way of editing and adding also a slider in few lines, and editing the way the slider appear. And I think that it is not well known, this approach of editing front-end developing in theme.
Yeah.
Yep. And then an interesting one that I know not everybody obviously seems to know or is fully familiar with is WP localized script. This one is actually generally for translating for JavaScript. And then we have WP script add data. That's actually a fairly new one. I'm trying to remember when it was added, but it's actually kind of neat one, pretty cool one, and it's very much like WP style add data. What's kind of cool about those is you can actually add conditionals to them, or you can even replace styles with that. So when we talked about inline styles, we talked about things like simple things. Like I said, just like in the WP head, we're just adding simple things. We want to change one color, or we want to change the line height of something. Excuse me. Or even a style or a script. Something simple like that.
Yeah.
Now, in localizing, it's kind of a neat one in that we're passing to it an array. And what we're passing to it is essentially it's a JavaScript object. And so it will be used in JavaScript. Core kind of creates this JavaScript object for you so you can actually access it as a global. And this is why you'd want to actually prefix it too. Okay. So when you actually prefix it or create the object, name it essentially, it's in the second parameter. And from there you'll be able to access it. And I know on the notes, if you're actually following along, I created a small snippet, a little gist that kind of goes over how it can be accessed. Mm-hmm. And then from there, all you do is enqueue the file. Now, there's times when we actually want to add additional information or we want to swap things out. So, for example, like if we're adding extra data to a style sheet, say we want it to only load when it's Internet Explorer less than 8, version 8. You could actually target specific browsers that way too, especially for Internet Explorer, because everybody loves Internet Explorer.
Yeah, we are the first fans.
It's always a fun one to test. I mean, do people still actually use 6?
I don't know if I ever used 6.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't. I think I stopped after 4.
I did give Microsoft Edge a go for about a week, and then went back to Chrome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I only use it to test.
Yeah,
That's the
same.
only reason. But even then, it's kind of like now I got to go watch myself. But yeah. And then what's cool is we talked about this one too. Is you could actually replace. So if you have like a right to left style sheet, you can actually replace it. You can enqueue that instead. In the Google Doc, you'll see a link. It's actually written by this one guy that works at Jetpack, whatever that plugin is, right? No, he's actually really cool guy. George Stefanis, actually, he wrote that blog post out, and I came across it, and I was like, oh, that's actually cool.
Jetpack is inside.
Oh, very nice.
Powered by Jet.
That's like Superman and Clark Kent. Take off your glasses.
Right?
And then fly away.
But yeah, no, like if you get a chance, actually read that article. It's really cool. And like I said, what's really nice too is you could actually replace using core functionality. You know, I've come across like 1 or 2 themes that actually use the conditional is right to left or is RTL in order to enqueue their style sheet. And that's obviously not the best way of adding that support for a theme.
And
Well, I mean,
it's also very, very important for internationalization and what we talked in the past Shindig.
Yes.
Because if you develop or review a theme, you have to pay a lot of attention in this aspect because the localization is more and more important, and it makes your theme, if you are an author, more available in more countries. So it's very important to pay attention to performance in this case, because you can replace your style sheet in your country way. So
exactly.
it's very important.
And also, even though we don't, between us using Text Explorer that much, there is still a lot of people using it. So understanding these conditionals and making sure your theme is compatible with, version 8 and up, which I still think quite a lot of people are using, is important.
Very true. That's right. And then an interesting one, of course, for adding script, adding script data. Like I was saying, there's use cases for this. An example, of course, is for adding support for older browsers. Again, Internet Explorer, adding the conditional. WordPress will do this for you. It'll actually create that little conditional and put that script inside, or put that markup for you. So you don't have to actually go ahead and say, I'm going to hard code this into the header. That's one of the things that we encourage you not to do. And that's the reason we always say enqueue everything. It's a lot easier to have a child theme and say, hey, just remove this action, than having to create a header, remove that line, because who wants to create that? Who wants to create that header file, duplicate this? What happens if they forget a semicolon? Their site breaks. And
a lot of users think their site is completely down if they're not familiar with PHP. Also, I think it's against the requirements at the moment, isn't it? Adding a script directly in header, so that wouldn't even be allowed at the moment. So they would need to use this sort of, or a theme developer would need to use this sort of approach anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, I think also open source is about not reinvent the wheel. Every time you can use something already inside, you can avoid to reinvent the wheel. So these are there are a lot of mantra we use often in our meetups or WordCamp that do the child theme, don't reinvent the wheel, and read carefully what's already inside. So you don't have to rewrite or write thousands of lines of code, because maybe are already inside. So it's better to read and document yourself and not try to program or use some tutorials, Googling and making things working, but not upgradable. Because sometimes you find a way to insert some code in your theme or in your plugins. It works, but at the first upgrade, boom.
Exactly. I mean, WordPress, for what it's achieved, hasn't been around that long. So I think when people come to it, they're probably a little bit too smart for their own good in some ways. But WordPress is a very mature framework. So you're right, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. If you're thinking of doing something, more than likely you can do that using a core function of some sort.
Yeah.
And then looks like we've actually reached the end. I mean, obviously, I've got questions, but obviously, if you guys have questions, comments, concerns, raise them. You know.
I guess just one point which we didn't cover was inline CSS actually in HTML. So we discussed this briefly before the Shindig privately, but there's never really a good reason to do that.
Yeah.
So if people were considering doing that, might as well just use a conditional to find out whether that specific page or whatever is being loaded, and add a custom class to the body tag or somewhere else a post function, and then target it with CSS. So, understanding how to enqueue and conditionals and things like that, you shouldn't need to add any inline CSS actually into the HTML, things like that itself.
Very true. Yeah, it's
understanding.
It's very hard, a lot of it too, because inline styles will always trump anything. It's one of those things where if you really want to override that style, you have to be like super specific, or you have to resort to JavaScript, which obviously is not always ideal. Ben, have you got any questions? Anything that you're not too familiar with? Looking even at...
it covers everything from what I have done previous in all the themes that I've done or reviews. It pretty much covers everything.
Awesome, that's good to hear. It's very good to hear. Cristiano, you got anything?
I was thinking about how maybe the new situation with the new REST API would change the way we will enqueue external files. If there would be maybe a new approach about that, or what can be the way we will enqueue the files in the future could change?
I don't think actually it would change. I mean, obviously you still have to use WP and QScript, because a lot of it probably would be JavaScript files. I know I've seen one or two themes actually try to do just this JSON. It's jQuery JSON, or I think it's jQuery.get, which obviously is a get command for that. But you'd still be using WP and QScript.
Okay. Cool.
Now, let's turn over to Twitter. Yeah? Any questions, comments, concerns from these? We do see a lot of people, though. That's awesome. It's good to see.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We got comments from theme review. So, Surenda. I want to say that's the name. Sorry if I butcher it. But did ask, obviously, about theme reviews, if we want to do a live one. But yeah, hopefully end of this month we'll plan for something. I really would love to get more reviewers on this, and I think it would be a good thing to do, at least along with the Shindig.
Yeah, a live review is a very good way to share knowledge, to share doubts mostly, because I think that the doubts are more than the knowledge, and we can improve our ability to make things faster, better, and more manageable, upgradable, doing all together a review.
And I think it's actually been on a couple WordCamps too. Code reviews actually help. Code reviews can help not only the person that created that thing, but can also help the other person that's doing the review. I know over the last 4 years, it's actually helped me understand, and it's helped me learn a lot about how WordPress works. It's helped me understand a lot about how not only JavaScript works, but PHP as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
I think it's very important to review, whenever people have time, not necessarily, just do it with the time you have. You don't need to commit a lot to it. For example, if we take the last couple of years with our community, the review community, things have changed a lot. Now, if you don't review necessarily, you could still be developing your theme to old standards. It's just an easy way to keep on top of whatever the new guidelines are and things like that.
Exactly, to remain updated to the new standard, and also to learn all the standard that maybe you don't know, because if you find something that it works, maybe you are not moved to try to make it in a different way, and instead making something together, make your approach in a different way. May make it gives you a different views to do things. So it's very important.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I think let's go with closing remarks then. Afzal, let's go with you. You have anything to say for theme authors and theme reviewers?
So I guess the things that any author should take account of are things like prefixing. Make sure you're custom prefixing all of your own functions, and avoid prefixing of third-party scripts so you're not slowing down sites and causing conflict issues. You can take advantage of the speed improvements in enqueuing, so loading scripts in the footer where possible, using media queries in the styles, not using inline styling as in the HTML itself, but just make your theme child theme friendly, speedy, and things like that. I won't cover too much more. So.
Oh, that's good. Awesome. Ben, anything to add? Anything you want to share with theme authors, theme reviewers?
I was going to say that if you were having issues within your themes or anything, that you can just go ahead and ask on Slack.
Exactly.
Oh, that's always a good practice. Cristiano, anything you want to say to the theme authors, theme reviewers?
Yeah, go to Slack is very important, like said Ben, because in Slack you in the theme review channel you can always find someone that could help you if you have some doubt in making themes or also reviewing themes. You are not alone, never. So if you want to start a review, you can pick up your theme, download it, and using also some tools that we will talk in the next Shindig, you can be helped to make a review or also a theme. So Slack is very important. Then remember an important side that maybe not everybody knows. So reach us to Slack, in Slack.
Oh, yeah, no, that's actually what I was, along the lines of what I was going to say too, is don't hesitate. There's literally a lot of resources out there for you, not only for reviewers, but authors as well. The theme review Slack channel is always there. If you seriously feel like it's a stupid question, ask it anyway. You're not going to know the answer until you actually ask, right? One of the things that I've learned over the years too is you're going to come across some of the weirdest things You're going to see some of the strangest things, but you know what? At least you learn something from it. And a lot of the people on the actual channel too are not afraid of answering. If you're too scared, private message, direct message. It's like, hey, you mind this, do this, or can you help me with this? Don't be afraid of asking for help. It's
everyone is very, very friendly in theme reviews. So like really just ask.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We are all human, and we all make mistakes. So I often make, but we have a friend to ask for to avoid and how to not make mistakes. So don't be afraid.
Yeah, we learn from those mistakes. That's the key takeaway from it. Learn from it. If you're not going to learn from your mistakes, learn from someone else's, like mine.
Yeah.
So yeah, but no. So who was it? Yeah, Cristiano. You actually mentioned for our next Shindig for January, we're gonna focus on tools. So one of the things that we want to do is obviously we want to go over the tools that we use as theme reviewers. One of them is going to be, of course, PHP-CS, which is the PHP code sniffer. If you're not too familiar with this, it would be an awesome thing to get accustomed to, something to learn, or something to at least get an idea with. Familiarize yourself with it. Get an understanding of what it is and what it does and why we want to use it. And we also will be going over different environments, because we all set up things very differently. There's so many tools out there that you can use to set up your staging environment. You can do your own little review environment. There's Vagrant or VVV. There's MAMP, WAMP, ZAMP. There's, Local by Flywheel now, which is like a Docker. There's so many tools out there, so many things that you can use to help you review themes. There's editors, PHP Storm. There's IDEs that can help you out. Obviously, what it really comes down to is what you are more comfortable with. You're not forced to... Go ahead.
And it is not so spread adopted the way to have a local development environment, because also this is a best practice to talk about. It's better to use a local environment using these tools like MAMP, VVV, because sometimes, and this is completely to avoid, people write on the production site. And it happens very, very often. I did also in the past, and sometimes I do until now. But it's very important to have a local environment where you can test everything, and also reviewing themes, but everything. If you use WordPress, it's better to have a local testing environment to code, to test, and so you can do everything. And the local environment works exactly the same that the online environment. So usually use it without any afraid to don't be afraid to make something different that when it's online doesn't work the same. So be confident, develop local.
Yes, don't be afraid to make locally.
Quickly.
Awesome. So with that, I guess we can say goodbye, and we will see you next time.
Bye.